Welcome to our guest today, Matthis Schultz, on the Instant Celebrity Maker. And he's got a special reveal that is a little bit planned because he's a man of routines. Matthis, say hello to our guest today.
Hello, how you guys doing? And it's a pleasure to be on the show today.
Yeah, so for the people that are able to watch, because some people are audio only, but for the people who are able to watch, show them what you showed me, and in terms of your routine, pulling back the lapel.
Everything I wear is already pre-planned out, pre-designed with our company logo, so it makes pretty much my morning routines pretty simple.
Well, tell us about Elite Ventures.
So Elite Ventures is an acquisitions and advisory firm. We really specialize in working with business owners and entrepreneurs who are looking to scale up their company. We do that through a mix of both strategic advisory and coaching to enable them to not only scale or sell their business. And on the acquisition side, in select cases, we end up purchasing companies that are doing between around 15 million and 100 million ARR.
And do you install systems in order to make them prepared for acquisition or to make them ready for sale? Is that what you do?
It comes in a lot of different ways. It really comes down to the entrepreneur or business owner's need and where they are. You know, they could be in a high growth stage where they're looking to increase valuation and look at exiting their company. And in those cases, helping guide that path and helping them really understand what they're looking to achieve and obtain, help fill those gaps and provide that subject matter expertise to be able to achieve that is where we come in. They're experts on their business. We're experts on scaling and succession. So, and then on the other hand, it could be, you know, your standard business owner has been in it 20 years. And at the end of the day, his son is no longer interested in taking over the business. He would like to retire, you know, kind of what the initial goal is no longer coming to fruition. So now they're looking at selling the business, but they're also not going to get the price that they want for the business either. So we have to look at, okay, so right now is not a good time to sell for you, but what can we do to increase the value of this company? And what can we do to get you closer to that point? And what actually needs to happen for you to achieve those goals and where you're looking to go? So it comes in a lot of different facets.
So it could be operations, it could be systems, and it could be marketing and sales. You know,
it really is all the above.
Okay. All right.
It's a very, very holistic approach.
Got it. Well, you diagnose and then prescribe.
Yep.
All right. So you're a business doctor. Excellent. In many ways.
For the most part. I've been called a business therapist before, but never a business doctor. So I just got a promotion apparently.
Yeah, well, you went from a PhD to an MD with an MBA on top. So that's good. All right. Well, how would your friends describe you? Let's talk about you a little bit.
Rare. I've always been kind of the black sheep, and so you know, I've always been very, very ambitious. I've always been described as loyal, the type of person that when somebody needs me, I'm always there, willing to go the extra mile in those cases. You know, so I don't know. I would have to stick with rare. It's just, you know, I started my first company at 14 years old and sold it by 19. You know, there's not a lot of kids that spend their entire high school career traveling the United States selling a product.
I have to ask, what was the business? Now you've piqued my curiosity, Matthis.
So I invented a grill for camping, which was followed by 6 additional products. We ended up selling that into Gander Mountain, Bass Pro Shops, and Scheels nationwide. And then in 2008, when we had the housing market crash and a lot of economic downturn, different things that were happening within the U.S. here, I was able to strategically exit and position that company for sale, which really enabled me to go in and start a landscaping company, which I sold in 3 years and did a short sale on that to another top 10 national firm here in the US, became an angel investor and just kind of kept going. So I bring, you know, not only the strategic side of it, but I truly understand what, you know, even 50-year-old business owners have done and what they're going through, just because that's what I've spent my entire life doing.
But I'm fascinated at 14. Let me go back to that because the others are obviously hybrids of your first success, and we'll get into this, but rarely, well, I say rarely because I think you installed the rare word in me. where people would refer to you as rare. How big was your company? Would you care to share, or are you under non-disclosure?
We were doing around 8 figures a year in revenue, and that was just simply pushing out product first year. And as we expanded lines, obviously we were able to grow that up and get that over $100 million in annual revenue. And it was a fun business, and it all started with just going camping and people walking by saying, "Oh my God, where'd you get that grill?" And it's like, actually, we designed it. And from business cards to me learning to weld in my garage, and my dad bringing home scrap steel and a welder, and me tack welding a table to weld our first prototype on, to setting up material outsourcing, manufacturing, distribution, payroll, marketing, going to conventions and boat shows and camping shows and everything we could get into. It definitely was not your typical childhood.
I was going to say at 14, I mean, what happened to soccer and, and basketball and some of the other, did you participate in sports? We're a
No,
little
I
bit
don't.
off topic, but I find this terribly interesting. When
I don't watch a lot of TV. I don't play video games. I don't play sports. I don't watch sports. All I do is read. I was the kid that read the dictionary and the thesaurus because I was bored. That's what I did. I've read the entire DSM-5 for all psychiatric diagnoses. It's just anything that is applicable to my real world, and anything that I can use to leverage myself or help enable or leverage other people is the stuff that I consume nonstop. Warren Buffett said that he reads 6 to 8 hours a day. I probably consume around 4 to 6 hours worth of educational content throughout a day.
There's a man that I met, and we'll dig back into the program in a second, but I find this terribly interesting. Man that I met named Marshall Thurber, who's been an inspiration to me. He is a former lawyer, but he reads 3 to 4 books every morning. He gets up at 4 a.m. He's a speed reader, obviously. You have to be. But he consumes 3 to 4 books from 4 till 9 in the morning. Uninterrupted, has his coffee and water, but reads those books very quickly to consume information. He's in his 80s now, and he's never taken his foot off the gas pedal. Like you, he doesn't watch TV. Occasionally will watch a movie with his wife because I think she drags him out of the books, but he does his consulting in the afternoon, but is focused on sponging in information, as he refers to. Does that ring true for you? It's very similar.
So funny enough, I saw an infographic when I was about 8 years old on a summer day, eating my cereal in front of the TV. And it was about how to speed read. And there was a guy on there that was literally speed reading books. And, he started talking about his technique. And I'm probably not as fast as your friend. I probably wouldn't retain 3 books in a morning. But there is some merit to, you're not looking at every word. You're not trying to pick up everything. You're picking up gists of every single paragraph, which enables you to then put that together in your head, because naturally when you read, you're only picking up a few of the words in a sentence anyway, not even in the exact orders. Your brain is putting all that together. And so if you can, be very intentional about what you're reading and how you're approaching that, you can consume a lot of knowledge. The hard part is retaining it and making sense of it. You can read it, but do you remember it?
Yeah, that's the big part. Yeah, and this man had great retention. He had a photographic memory on top of it, so he was gifted. But that's fantastic. So you don't go to movies?
Nope. Much like your other friend, when my wife forces me to make popcorn and sit down and watch Netflix or go do something, obviously I oblige. But aside from that, I am always in my own little world and dealing with what I have.
Are you formally educated? Did you go on to college, or did you just stick to business?
I stuck to business. There really wasn't much point for an MBA when I had already been through an exit before I could enter college.
Wow. Great story. So let me ask this. What is your greatest accomplishment? Now, this can be personal, or it can be business, or something that I hadn't even thought of. And total latitude here.
I would have to say marrying my wife. That is probably my biggest accomplishment and hardest sale. She was a very tough cookie to crack.
Is she listening?
No,
Okay.
she's not. But even if she was, she would agree with me.
Okay. All right. Well, that's fantastic. That's fantastic. This is especially applicable to you. What do you wish you had known when you started out because you were a kid? Now, in a different state.
Um, you're always your worst critic, and your mindset will always be your largest obstacle. That is probably the one thing I wish I would have known is that I'm going to get in my way more than anything else. It's not that I'm not competent, it's not that I don't know what to do, it's not that I don't have the answers in front of me. It's that I'm going to psych myself out, that I'm going to be my largest obstacle and worst critic. And allowing myself to get outside of that echo chamber a little bit faster than I did, I think would have greatly propelled myself even way further than I've already gone. And I consider myself fairly successful, but I haven't even begun to reach the levels of success that I hope to attain, and the amount of impact in this world that I hope to really bring forth.
Are you involved in anything philanthropic?
I'm a Freemason.
Okay.
I have, been a master Mason for a long time. And actually talking about philanthropy and philosophical type stuff, and kind of getting into the whole, why are we here and how can we do bigger? How can we do better? Is always been something that's always interested me. It's, the personal development without it, and really trying to understand yourself, is going to limit you in your executive presence, right? And if you can't bring your best self to that, how can you expect for your organization to grow when an organization's growth is always limited by its leadership?
Oh, completely agree. Completely agree. And it took me many years and many pains to understand and appreciate that. It's so true.
When that nut cracks and you fully understand it, you value what I do even more. And those that don't understand it and don't value it tend to not be good clients for us, and that's really what we look for, because it's not necessarily about the business. It's more about the leadership. That's really where we see potential.
Got it. And what are you curious about right now?
I would have to say the future of work and the global economy over the next 10 years, and how those things are going to shift.
Okay. Okay. Because of the pandemic, or?
I think there's a lot of things. I think there's been a lot of, political aspects that have tied into this, and it's become kind of a giant mixing bowl of a lot of different elements. And with the pandemic on top of it, and work from home being much more normalized at this point, there's a lot of conversation around that. What is that, what is that going to look like? And I don't really necessarily have any speculations I would like to divulge into, at this time, but those are things that I definitely think we should be speculating on, and definitely keeping an eye on, to better understand the position of growth for companies and people, and really where the landscape is going to be in the next 10 years.
Yeah, we are definitely here. Here's what's guaranteed: gravity and change.
Yep. And I'm
All
wondering
right.
what that change is going to be.
What's something that you have failed at?
A lot of things. Um, my biggest failure was when I lost several $1 million in a venture, because I was in an echo chamber and blinded. And this is what really opened me up, is I had success early on. So I was really naive, and I thought that I just had this knack, and that success was always going to be there, and money was always going to be there, and everything was always going to work out. And I had this golden ticket, right? And I got the confidence, but I didn't have the experience of failure behind me, or really that impact. And so I went to start a technology company, and I brought on a great technology executive from Wells Fargo as my CTO. I brought on summa cum laude graduate from North Dakota State University with an MBA in marketing for my CMO. I padded my team from day one with the greatest minds that I could pull on at what we could do. And I dumped millions and millions of dollars into this company at 3 years, and I failed to realize that things weren't as good as what I thought they were in those times. That things weren't going to turn around, that my actions needed to change, and that at the end of the venture, it was really, really painful, because not only did I just lose a whole bunch of money, I just lost a venture, and at the same time I almost lost a sense of identity for about 6 months. So it was definitely eye-opening for that failure, and going through that kind of that experience.
Well, it's interesting. You say I use the question failure because I listen to how people answer. I've had tons of failures also at my business experience, and it's only a failure is how I look back now. It's only a failure if I didn't learn something. If I repeat it again, then I truly failed. But if I take that injury, that's sore, and I sew it together and I look at it, okay, that was scar tissue there. And now I know not to repeat that same mistake. And
Yep.
I feel your pain, but we have to learn from it. And that's what makes the whole journey interesting.
You only fail if you fail to learn, or you actually give up and stop and quit. Those are the
Correct.
only two ways to truly fail. Anything else is just a step in the process.
Yeah, very, very true. Okay. Now here's my favorite question, and I'd love to hear this. If you could have coffee with any historical figure that's no longer with us, who would it be?
Um, Probably my favorite philosopher, um, Ralph Waldo Emerson.
Tell me about that. Why him? I mean, what was his impact on you?
I'm one of those people that I love quotes, and I love motivational things. And he has generated a lot of quotes, and brought a lot of philosophy around the world of what is the meaning of life, what is the meaning of happiness, and a lot of it really resonates with me. One of them being, it's never about the money. It's always about the journey. It's always about the people you surround yourself with. And so I have a lot of his artwork, actually quotated artwork, around in
Okay.
different places and stuff. And it's one of those things that it always resonates with me. I'll read them in the morning, as I'm, getting up and getting dressed. I, have one in the bedroom. I have one by my area in the bathroom, which is a smaller one of a different quote, and it's just, those are things that kind of help me prime myself for the day, and so, he's a very deep thinker. I think he brings a very holistic and interesting thought and approach to the world. But there's also a lot of other people I would love to have coffee with as well. But I think he would be the most beneficial, just due to the fact that you are what you attract. And if you consistently put out a lot of negativity, you're going to, receive a lot of negativity. If you consistently put out a lot of positivity, and, things that truly matter and are deeply tied to your values and your purpose, it makes your life a lot easier. And that's kind of the way that he likes to communicate and convey his messages and quotations, and different philosophies of life, and ways to practice. And so that just essentially really resonates with me.
Okay. Well, let's go a little bit more contemporary, or more, let's say, a person that's still living. Who's been your most important professional mentor?
Um, Even though I've greatly exceeded this person in my capabilities, and kind of outgrown, where they've been able to get to in their life and career, I would have to say my dad, bar none.
Well, but he set the tone for you. That's great. Now is okay. So that's great. So he was there helping you solder or weld and do all of that in the beginning. And
Well, he's been my biggest idol and role model my entire life, and while from the business aspect, I have gone a lot further than he would ever have gone. Him as a mentor and a role model, and the person that instilled my values. I there is no other person that I would say that I would look up to more, or want to aspire to be more like, even if that meant, potentially losing half of what I've already built.
That's great. That's really nice to hear that. That's respect. If you could go back and give your 18-year-old self one piece of advice, what would it be? I might even go
Mm,
back to 14 for you because you were very advanced at 14 compared to most 18-year-olds still.
Um, Slow down, take your time, enjoy your
Okay.
life. Always seek guidance. Try to, you don't have to know everything. Let yourself be in the present and be in the now. I've spent a lot of time worrying about past things that I've done that I know I can't change, and it's almost the perfectionist mindset of, um, you know, even though I've done something, I always wonder if I could have done it better. Is something, and so having some of that complexity, keeping that in check within myself is one of those pieces of, just being present in the now. And I think there's a lot of value in that. And mainly because of the fact that, and back when I was, 14 years old, I wouldn't have believed it or probably understood it if I had told myself that. But it's really that happiness and success are both a mindset and choice, and both of them require you to be in the present and the now and be happy with what you have. And that really takes you to be not only vulnerable but humble, and bring in some of the best quality characteristics you can possibly have. So it's pretty deep, and I don't even think I would have understood it back then. But that's something I wish I would have heard and maybe listened to more.
Do you wish you would have played some of the sports or done some of those things that kids do in hindsight? Did you? Because 14,
No, I don't wish I would have done any of that stuff. But I wish I would have spent more time building relationships with people my own age, because I'm now getting to a point where my closest relationships are dying, and so I'm in my mid 30s, and all of my friends are 50, 60, 70, 80, 90-year-old executives and people that were around me, since I was a kid, and most of them are retiring, and now I'm stuck with a completely generation and almost having to rebuild a network mid stage in my career. So I think I would have spent more time, but the problem is their mentality wasn't where my mentality is. And even today, those that are around my age, or a majority of my age group or generation, isn't at the mentality that I'm at, or doesn't value the things I value, or doesn't hold themselves to the standard that I hold myself to. And there was a great pastor that had said, if you want to soar with eagles, you can't hang out with chickens and hens, and if you want to know who you're going to be in 5 years, look at the 5 people you surround yourself with. And that really resonated with me. And so I've always been very, very selective of who do I work with, who do I surround myself with, who are my friends. I know a lot of people. I have very, very few friends.
I tend to hold the same standard for myself. And I've heard that the 5 people that you hang around, you'll be like, as well as you'll be within 5% of each other's income.
Yep.
I don't know how verifiable that is, but it seems to make sense. And I run from negative people personally. I just can't handle it. It's
Birds of a
nails on
feather
the
flock
head.
together.
Yeah, birds of feather flock together. Absolutely. You're a goal-oriented man. I mean, certainly. I know you probably have a ton of goals what you want to reach in your life, where you want to reach in your life. Tell us about how you want to get there.
That I'm already in the process of executing on that.
I'm sure you are. So
That's really what Elite Ventures is there's the big portion of me being able to give back and contribute and help enable others, as people have enabled me to reach the successes I want, and there's the huge advisory piece. But the side that, we're really working on is the acquisitions piece, right? It's like, we want, one of the things is Elite Ventures is just an extension of myself, and at the end of the day, I'm passionate about acquiring assets. I'm passionate about building wealth. I'm passionate about making smart financial moves, smart business moves, and doing things efficiently in the way that create the biggest returns of investment for everybody involved, right? And so through Elite Ventures, we're acquiring organizations. We're, which can lead us to having a bigger impact in a lot of different areas because of the 100% ownership in those companies we take. We play a lot in real estate, and so there's a lot of areas in commercial real estate that I personally invest in, and that I also, through our corporation invest in and do different types of, trades and being able to flip those or rent them out for commercial uses and do different things there. Sometimes we'll just quickly wholesale it. Other times we'll actually take the property on completely, right? And so for me and where my goals are is really about creating an area that I can create the biggest impact. And, that's really what this is it's a vehicle for me to do that.
Okay. Makes sense. And you've heard the old adage of, if you had to write a book tomorrow, what would you write about?
I would write an autobiography.
Okay. The 14-year-old camper to 9 figures. Yeah.
Well, and the thing is it goes much, much deeper than that when you start to divulge into my personal life and a lot of other things, because we've focused a lot on the business aspect and stuff, but there was also, I'm a keynote speaker for the National Alliance for the Mentally Ill. I was diagnosed with bipolar at 6 years old and had my first suicide attempt at 7. And completely overcame that as well, and went on to create my first patent and build my first business. And the thing is when somebody says they can't do something, I don't believe that. That's just an excuse. If you want to see self-made, if you want to see somebody that should be dead right now, that has actually made it to success and actually built themselves up from nothing and has conquered a lot of demons and battles, you're looking at them. I don't believe in excuses. I'm an executor. If you want it bad enough, you'll make it happen.
Love that. Love that. Okay. Well, that's great. So yeah, I think you do have room for an autobiography at some point. Great story. And what's one question you wish I'd asked that you'd like to have answered? Because I was going to ask something personal, but you just answered that. You brought that up. So I was, tell us something that isn't in there.
That's
what comes to mind.
I'll
bring something up fun. You said it was the hardest sale to get your wife to say yes, is your accomplishment. How did you sell that? Again, we've opened up the can of worms on the personal side. So how did you achieve that?
Honestly, it was pure dumb luck. I should have never closed that deal. Honestly, if I was her, I would have ran the other way. It was the most cringeworthy and pathetic approach, but it was so authentic to who I am. I have a huge sense of humor. I'm super cheesy, and so it's the whole thing of what works for me won't work for you, and what works for you won't work for me, but I can help you figure out what will work for you, right? And so my game necessarily, it shouldn't have worked. It really shouldn't have. Honestly, she had a very poor moment of judgment, I would have to say. But I am so glad that she took the chance.
That's pretty funny. That's pretty funny. Well, how can I support you?
I think you already have, just by taking the opportunity to build our relationship, get to know each other, have this conversation in general, and allow me to be part of what you're working on with the Instant Celebrity Maker. I believe that's already been accomplished, and I definitely appreciate it.
Well, here's how they can get in touch with you. Are you looking on a national basis, or
Yep.
is it mostly in Atlanta where you're based?
We operate nationally. We do business all throughout the U.S. We don't actively approach outside the U.S., but there is companies that we work with in Dubai and the U.K. and Canada that have reached out to us and would like to work with us, and so we've taken companies like that on as well. But primarily it's U.S. based, and In order to really get in contact with myself, it's LinkedIn is the best way. Our website, just give us a call. But aside from that, I'm pretty much only on LinkedIn.
So you're mostly US based, some Canada, some UK. Would you be open to Singapore? Because I would like to expose you to my clients in Singapore, because I lived in Asia for over a decade, and that was a big source of my business with some big players in that part of the world. And that's a money center.
Yeah, no, I would be more than happy to expanding out, and seeing, who can be helped there. My Mandarin is terrible.
You don't have to speak Mandarin. They speak English. They call it Singlish because they have a fun accent in how they speak, and they end their sentences like Canadians say "a" sometimes at the end. They say "law."
Oh,
It's really good to meet you, law. That's how they end their sentence. It's cute. It's called Singapore English. Singlish is how it's dubbed. You have to tune your ear. It's hard to understand in the beginning, but now I understand them perfectly. But they are super, super bright people. Some of the smartest I've met anywhere in the world. Small country, only 6 million, and you have to behave over there or they'll cane you. And I'm not kidding.
really?
Oh yeah. I mean, you spit gum on the ground, you're going to get caned. And
Wow.
oh, it's serious. And you cannot, there are a lot of restrictions. I mean, it's an interesting place, more pros than cons. They follow straight. You can't bribe cops there. I mean, there's no corruption in that arena. Like in other countries in Asia, corruption is rampant. Like I lived in Manila for a bit, totally different experience. Corruption. Not in Singapore. Straightforward, smart people, and walk up the path of morality, I would have to say. So that would be an interesting experience.
I'm always happy to have a conversation.
I'll make the introduction. We'll do that. So I'm just thinking of a unique way to be able to support you. And that's the first thought that came to mind. I mean, I do interviews every day, several a day in some cases. First person I've offered that to. So it's interesting that we've had this conversation. As I shared with you in the beginning, you never know where it's going to go. We have some set questions, but then the latitude comes into play. So how's your experience been on the show?
It's been fun. No, I think the questions themselves caused me to think in a different way than other interviews or podcasts I've been part of. I think that's super valuable. It's very much like our focus. It's a mix of both professional and personal. And the questions are very personal based, but allow to divulge into that professional aspect, which is obviously the people are the most important. So I'm glad that this was kind of the structure for it.
Okay. And what's your final word? How do you want to leave this before we turn off the live? We know how to
be afraid to go for it.
EliteVentures.co, but what's the advice? The general.
There's never a perfect time. Just go for it.
Okay. Love it. Well, you've been a great guest, superb guest, Matthis. And I love the story of a 14-year-old entrepreneur and then selling it for big dollars. And you're living your dream. You're actionable. You're doing it. And that is an inspiration. I got to tell you, I feel pumped up after talking to you today. And I want to say thank you. And I mean that with the greatest of authenticity and sincerity. And I'd love to have you on the show again at a later date. Thank you for your time.
You are more than welcome.